Good morning, evening, or afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to a special Team of the Month edition of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm joined by Tony Robinson today, and we have an extra special guest with us, who you may know not only as a contributor to Across the Pitch, but also color commentator for our Team of the Month, Greenville Triumph, all-around top bloke. Welcome to the show, Ross Devonport, and thank you for joining us for this Team of the Month series. Last night they played against Forward Madison. That game resulted in a draw. And in Greenville, they're one of the teams that would be considered a favorite coming in this year.
Well, we won the first two games, Phil. Thanks for having me. First of all, Tony, good to talk. We won the first two. We won the first two games away at Fort Lauderdale. The first ever game in the new Inter Miami Stadium, I should say. Here, just 10 minutes from me down the road in Fort Lauderdale, and we beat Richmond Kickers 3-2 in our first home match in front of no fans, which was a very scrappy game. Featured a couple of own goals, one which was turned into a goal for Jake Keegan, who's currently leading the scoring charts as far as I know heading into tonight. And then the draw last night. I only got to watch the first half of it because I was working. It was a bit of a dire affair, but we've played forward 4 times now. We've drawn them 0-0 3 times out of those 4. And the other game I was at, we won 1-0. I missed the goal because I went to the souvenir stand at right before halftime when Chris Bermudez scored a lovely left-footed curler into the top corner, and I missed that one. But yeah, no, I'll take a point. We were a little short-handed, but yeah, good start to the season. We are one of the favorites, Phil, as you said, after getting to the championship game last year and playing better than North Texas in that championship game. It just fell into put the ball in the back of the net and losing 1-0.
So, Ross, why don't you start off by telling us just a little bit about the background of Greenville Triumph, how the club got started, and then I know that after you kind of give us some background on the history of the club and how they got started, and Tony has some questions here that he wants to ask you about the structure of USL League One and kind of how that works. Let's start off with a bit of background on the Triumph Club itself.
Sure. So obviously last season was the first year of USL League One, which is considered the third level of professional soccer in the United States. So Greenville, one of the founding members of that league, one of the ones that are still existing. Lansing Ignite actually only lasted 1 year, but everybody else is back for this season, the second year. Obviously, we're off to a little bit of a late start, but yeah, they're playing obviously in Greenville, South Carolina, managed by John Harkes, obviously former USA men's national team captain, and I think the first American to play in the Premier League, if I'm not mistaken. So we've got a good name manager. He loves the area. His kids, I think all of his kids actually went to school in the Carolinas. We play at Legacy Early College Field, which is a high school in Greenville. Turf field, added some bleachers. It's funny if you actually go online and look at the photos of the stadium before they put the bleachers in. They've actually made it into a nice little facility. Made some upgrades this year. It's been exciting. We got to the final last year, as we said. We got off to a bit of a slow start. We weren't scoring early. We got things going late and got all the way to the final where we lost to, again, North Texas, which is the affiliate of Dallas, FC Dallas, one of the best academies in MLS. The great ownership group too, the Irwins, Joe and his son Doug, always chatting to me. Doug always comes on the conference calls midweek with us and John, and has very involved in the running of the club. No, it's a great family experience. We had some great crowds last year. The first game, I think we sold out 4,000. Obviously, as the season went on, diminished a little bit. But we're hoping to get fans back here. Rumors are perhaps on Wednesday night we might see a few fans in the crowd. So we'll have to see.
Well, you touched on there, Ross, about the he said a high school or college stadium that you play in. But you said 4,000. That's a good size stadium, obviously along the lines of some lower league stadiums in England. So I think people sometimes across the pond would think that if it's in a school or college, that there's very little in the way of capacity. But obviously that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, those of you that I'm sure you two are a little bit familiar with high school football here in America, especially in certain places in the country, hotbeds like Texas and California, that some of these high school stadiums can fit, 5-digit fans in there. I know there's a high school, I think here, that had 18,000 in Florida at their spring sort of opener last year, which is part of the reason why they were trying to get the Fall Classic, why they were trying to get the football season going here. But yeah, no, it's a nice little facility. They've got bleachers on the one side, a nice press box. The other side has some little sort of suites, which are actually going to sort of redo this season. They're going to have some all-you-can-eat offers, all-you-can-drink, similar to what Forward Madison has, which was where I was for my one away trip last year. And then we have the sort of the Reedy River Riot section behind the one goal to the left of the cameras if you're looking at. And then we have some standing areas as well in the corners and down the other end as well. So no, it's a nice little facility that they've turned it into. Obviously, it'd be nice down the road to have our own little facility like Chattanooga is opening, I think today actually. But yeah, that maybe a little bit down the road, a couple of years perhaps.
While we're talking about the structure of the league, one thing that Ross had mentioned earlier is North Texas being part of the MLS system for Houston Dynamo. So what I wanted to ask about, Ross, and I'm sure this is probably something you had on your list, Tony, is tell us a little bit about which teams are affiliated with MLS clubs and which clubs are independent in USL League One.
Right. So you mentioned North Texas. Yeah, they're actually affiliated with FC Dallas.
I'm sorry, my mistake.
That's right. So we've also got Orlando City B, who obviously are affiliated with Orlando City. You've got Toronto FC too, who are not actually playing in this year's League One because of the COVID problems and getting in and out of Canada. So they dropped out this year, but they expect to be back next year. We also have New England Revolution too, who are a new team this season. Obviously, the affiliate of New England Revolution, and then Fort Lauderdale CF, who are the Inter Miami's affiliate. So those are them. We also have independent teams in Chattanooga, obviously in Madison, Forward Madison, Tormentor FC, who are out of Statesboro, Georgia. We actually play them on Wednesday night. Richmond Kickers, which most professional soccer fans in this country should be familiar with, is one of the oldest. I think they are the oldest, tied with Charleston as the oldest continuous professional USA franchise. And then we have FC Tucson, and as Phil will be familiar with, which are they are owned by Phoenix Rising. So they're an affiliate of the USL Championship side. They're only one of those in our division. And then we have Union Omaha, who are an independent side that are joining us this year. And we'll play their first home game today, or Saturday. We'll say we're recording this on Saturday, play their first home game today.
So if there's teams affiliated with the teams you just mentioned, does that mean the players are owned by the parent club, or are they a separate contract?
It depends. It's sort of a combination. So there are a number of players that will just be under contract. I would say there's probably a third of guys that are just under contract with the team, and then there are perhaps a third of guys that are sort of quote on the books with the parent side that have signed contracts. They're not on a homegrown deal or anything, but then they sign with the League One side, but the MLS team has the rights to them, shall we say. And then there are obviously homegrown players and other guys at the bottom end of the MLS roster who will drop down and come back up as needed. We had a good chat last week with our Richmond Kickers coach Darren Sawatsky, who was at Tucson last year. And we asked him about that season. He only lasted 1 year with Tucson. He was expressing the sort of frustration with being an affiliate side, because you practice all week and then on a Friday morning you get a call saying, we're sending these 4 or 5 guys down from Phoenix Rising. It just completely screws up what you've worked on for the entire week. So it can be difficult, although John Harks has said on numerous occasions that he thinks it's an advantage just being able to have the access to MLS quality players if needed. For example, North Texas, when they played us in the championship game last year, they sent I think he was 30 at the time, 30-year-old experienced keeper, like the third or fourth string in Dallas. He played 5 games for North Texas during the 28-game season, which I think is the minimum required. And he came down just for the championship game. I don't think he played in a month or two, and then I played a blinder in the championship game. Basically, gave him the 1-0 victory. So it can be an edge and a curse and a blessing, depending on how you see it.
Tony, I was going to say that I think it's very similar to what you would see with minor league baseball, like with the Blue Jays, where their AAA farm team is going to actually have some players that are under contract with the AAA team in addition to the guys that are Blue Jays.
Yeah, I think it's just something that is worth the explanation, because I know there's a lot of people in England that would not sort of understand that affiliation, because we're more used to seeing that in North America.
you do have the loan system in England, which obviously you can have relationships with plenty of different clubs, which you can see that as just being similar to that, and in that you can only send your players down to your affiliate club. So it's a little similar in that regard, but yeah, it's a very different system overall than the UK.
What I'm always intrigued when with teams and their history. So how old is the club itself, and where did the name Triumph come from?
Well, they only formed in March of 2018. Obviously, 2019 was our first season. So about a year. There's obviously been rumors before that of a team coming to USL, just like you hear sort of every year before it's actually officially announced. As far as the Triumph name, if I remember correctly, it was just to do with the area and coming through some several sort of depression eras and still managing to bounce back as a manufacturing area. Greenville, nicely up there in the upstate of South Carolina, and yeah, it's just sort of it's actually a nice name. I think when it first came out, just like a lot of these new club names, everybody was sort of like, We've seen some more traditional names, obviously, but I think we had Charlotte FC basically coming out last week, and everybody was a little perhaps disappointed in the traditional name, but everybody seems to like the Triumph, and everybody loves the logo. I think everybody's in agreement.
There's probably some folks that might need some help with where Greenville is located. Where is Greenville on the map? Especially folks in England probably wouldn't know that.
So South Carolina obviously is does have a coastal side to it on the east, we'll say the southeast coast of the United States, but Greenville is towards sort of the west central area of the state, so they call it the upstate, so a little bit further north away from the coast quite a bit. Yeah.
Well, I like the name. I think it's very it's unique, and I think you get these teams like you say that just come up with a FC or a simple name, but I find in League One and also in League Two, there's some really, really interesting names. And I think one of my favorite names in the League Two is Ocean City Nor'easters. I think that's just a fantastic name. It's just very, very imaginative, and I think that's that's good for the sport when you can come up with a unique name.
Exactly. Yeah. If you know where the Smoky Mountains are, so Knoxville. For those of you might not be familiar with sort of the USA geography, Knoxville is sort of on one side of the Smoky Mountains. Asheville is kind of in the middle, which is a little bit further east in North Carolina. And then Greenville is just sort of south of Asheville, not far from Charlotte at all. Just it's actually not far from North Carolina. So it's sort of that west central north. I call it Northwest, but they like to call it the upstate. So I don't want to make anybody upset.
And so that those mountains on the crest, those would be the Smoky Mountains on the crest itself.
Yeah, I mean, the Cherokee National Forest is right there as well. I was just kind of looking at a map real quick because the Smoky Mountains they're a big, the Appalachians is basically the bigger name for it, I would say. But the Smoky Mountains, I used to live in Knoxville for a year, so that's where I'm more familiar with. That's sort of on the other side. But yeah, it's on the south side of the Smoky Mountains, but a beautiful area of the country.
Yeah, I think it's a great logo. It's it has a bit of a similar look to the Toronto FC one, but it's I think it's a little more in depth. I like the logo.
No, they did a great job of it, and obviously the SC, stands for soccer club, but also stands for South Carolina. So that's a nice little touch as well.
Oh, that's I didn't catch that. That's good. That's clever.
Yep, somebody much cleverer than me thought of that one, Tony.
So who are some of the top players that we'd want to watch out for watching the Triumph this year?
Well, I would say our number one, obviously, we're known for our defending. John Harkes, coming from an English background, likes to really settle in with two rows of four. He's actually gone a sort of more 4-2-3-1 since the beginning of since we started with two defensive midfielders. But in goal is probably our best player, Dallas J. Played with John Harkes with FC Cincinnati. Didn't play much after that. I'm trying to think where he went after that. Oh, he was at Phoenix Rising for a little while, Phil. That's right. Didn't play at all there. He was just sat on the bench. And John Harkes saw what he had, though, in FC Cincinnati and brought him in as our goalkeeper. He's actually a Guam international. Won the Goalkeeper of the Year last year and the Golden Glove Award. Made a superb double save in the opener against Fort Lauderdale, which won the Save of the Week, although that was the only game in Week 1 for League One. But it would definitely have won Save of the Week in almost any other week. So Dallas J in goal is one definitely to keep an eye on. Our captain, we sort of split captains. Our home captain is Tyler Polak, who's another guy that John Harkes was familiar with during his brief spell in FC Cincinnati. He's our left back, loves to get forward. You recognize him with his bald head. And then our striker, Jake Keegan, who unfortunately last year was probably en route to perhaps contend for the goal scoring title, got hurt towards the end of the year, broke his foot actually in the game I was at in Fort Madison. He finished the game. Nobody knew about it. We actually lost Max Hemmings in that game as well, one of our English midfielders. But yeah, out of Westchester, Jake Keegan, he played a little bit in Ireland for Galway United, actually scored 27 goals for them over a couple of seasons. That got him a job with FC Edmonton, didn't score as much there, went back to Ireland for a little bit, and then he was one of our inaugural players last year and has scored 3 goals already this season. So those are the 3 main guys to look out for. I think we lost a couple of guys to the USL Championship. Kevin Pollitz, you could say he got promoted to Hartford Athletic, and Chris Bermudez, one of our good young wingers, went off to Real Monarchs. So we lost 2 guys to the USL champion. We also lost another starter, Cole Seiler, to retirement at the age of only 26, which was disappointing. He was a great local kid too, out of South Carolina. But we've only lost 3 starters, which a lot of teams, as you know, Phil, even in the championship, have big roster turnovers from year to year. Most of these guys under 1 year, 1 year with option contracts. So a lot of these teams do tend to lose a lot of starters as they go, but we've only lost 3 this season. We've replaced them with very capable players. So hence,
I think it's a similar
being one of the favorites
to what you'd see at like the conference or English League 2, maybe even a little bit more.
Yeah, especially as the league's getting established. Yeah,
I was interested. The one you mentioned about English players. Is there any set rules on import players, or what's the setup for in that League One?
There is a minimum. There is a maximum. I think it's 5. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to go down our list here. Paul Klaus, who is a Clemson grad, he might well have a green card by now because he's been here for a number of years. I'm pretty sure because we've got 1, 2. I'm just going down the roster now. 1, 2, 3, 4. It might be 7 actually, but I think as a squad, I think you can have 7, which for Greenville is a lot because we have one of the smaller budgets in the league, and we only have 20 players on our roster. We have 1 youth player as well in Connor Dowler, but he's not expected to play. He just trains with the team. So having a third of your roster foreign players is interesting, but I'm pretty sure it's 7 total on the squad. And obviously, I like Gold Dust.
Darren Woodhead, who co-host on this podcast, and I were talking before, and he was asked me to sort of work into the conversation or ask the question: is these English players are they coming from are coming right from England, or are they coming out of the college system or the university system in the States?
So I would say, as a percentage, probably 80 to 90% of them come through the college system. I think all of our guys played college here. Max Hemmings was Georgia State. JJ Donnelly was Eastern Florida State College and then went off to Campbell. But all of them come from obviously England youth systems, and there's a huge market, for English college players coming over.
Yeah,
they get a little frustrated perhaps in the youth system or whatever pro team they're with in England, and then there's tons of opportunities here, especially at the NCAA Division II and NAIA levels, for foreign players. There's a lot less strict rules than there are at Division I. So you do see a lot of Division II and NAIA players as well come over from England. But yeah, not too many. I think Greg Hurst, who plays for Chattanooga, might be one of the few ones I've seen. He came from Scotland. He's one of the few that I've actually seen, being specifically signed from a club over there, as opposed, as a senior player rather than a youth player. He was at Stenhouse Muir and got signed straight from there to play for Chattanooga. So doesn't happen very often. Most of them do come through the college system.
Right. Interesting.
But the other thing is sometimes you'll see guys get signed, like Ross was saying, off of the youth team. But it's really kind of rare to see, I would say, a player in the USL that's maybe played in like League One or League Two. But it does happen, like the guy that I was writing about this morning, Andrew Fox, who plays for El Paso, had played for Peterborough United and Grimsby, but that's far and few between to find a guy like that. You're going to see more guys like Corey Whelan for Phoenix Rising, who came from the Liverpool Academy. They hadn't really played it.
Yeah, you obviously occasionally see the older guys come over. Not so much League One, but some of the championship teams have seen older guys come over, perhaps even from South America as well, but not so much the younger guys yet.
I think it's
guys, maybe 32, 33 coming over.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting where you can get people, players from England coming over get an education, and there's an opportunity for them to play in the States as opposed to going back to England and maybe struggling. I think it's a great way to see another country, get an education, and play some professional football. I think that's brilliant.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do commentary as well for Nova Southeastern University, which is a Division II college here just down the road from me. And I would say the men's and women's soccer teams, I'd maybe say we have 5 Americans total between the two squads. So it's a great opportunity because obviously college, university soccer in England and in most of Europe isn't anything spectacular at all. You're going to school to go to school. But here, there's some amazing schools you can obviously get, free or a very reduced cost education at if you're a half-decent soccer player. So it's a big business. There's a number of companies, that'll connect the teams over there, the youth teams over there with the colleges here.
Yeah, unlike with basketball and American football, if you're playing for a university soccer team here, you really are a student and an athlete, not just an athlete. Where in England, if you're a top player, you're going to be somebody that's playing for an academy team, and you're really going to be only getting an education in football. And that puts so many guys in a position where, they were in the academy from the time they were 8 until they were 20, and then, maybe they just ended up only being good enough to be a conference level player. Whereas if over here, if you've got a guy that, they play at the college level, and then, they're just not quite at the level of talent to make it into pros, they've at least got a degree to fall back on.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too that to differentiate from England to over in the USL League One is something we should mention too, is that they're franchise based, right, Ross? So you buy into the league, and once you're in the league, you stay in that league, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the franchise fee is similar to MLS. I know it's like a Phil interesting question about whether MLS was a Ponzi scheme for the pod the other day. I'd heard his answer, but yeah, obviously there's all sorts of numbers being thrown about how much it costs to have a franchise. But it's obviously gone up since year one. I think like any league, especially MLS, you see the numbers being thrown about nowadays for MLS franchise fees. It's a lot of money, but yeah, you have the rights that. It's happening a lot in Major League Rugby now too. The teams you get exclusive rights to an area for a certain time, and then as long as you come up with the money and you get approved by the USL, then you get the rights to have that. I'm not sure exactly the size of the area that you're promised that there won't be another professional team put in there by USL. It obviously was a bit of an issue. I remember in Chattanooga they had a pretty successful League Two side, which was an amateur, but they didn't particularly get along with the new franchise. I think it's calmed things down now a little bit. But yeah, no, it's not cheap to get into. You got to have the money.
With the MLS, you're talking a 9-figure franchise fee. With the USL Championship, I think it's a low 8-figure franchise fee, and then with the League One, it's more of a low 7-figure franchise fee, right?
Yeah, I would agree. But that's what I've heard. Mid to low 7 figures, and you obviously have to show as well that you have the cash flow to be able to maintain, especially through that first season, which was disappointing for Lansing, the team up there that folded after the first season. Their owner also owned the baseball team up there and saw immediate success with baseball. But obviously soccer, as we know, sometimes the franchises take a little bit to get going, except Phoenix, obviously, who've done an amazing job there. But he expected to make money as a soccer team in the first year and didn't. And he said, that's it, we've had enough. And he pulled everything after 1 year, which was a big disappointment, especially as they got to
I wouldn't say that Phoenix was successful from day one. I mean, the days of, Arizona United where they were playing out in Peoria, it really wasn't until they rebranded to Phoenix Rising that they started having success.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant. As a rise, as the rising franchise, they've had immediate success just from having that great stadium that I drive by every time I come from the airport to driving to Mesa. I point it out to the kids. And it's very important to have a nice little stadium. Greenville is close enough to downtown. It's not right in downtown, and all the other
having
stadiums
that Drogba guy in town for just didn't hurt either.
Don't forget about that. Don't forget about that, man. Even though I saw his team lost today in the FA Cup final. Well done, Phil, on your Arsenal pulling that one out in the bag.
Oh, that was amazing. It was today is probably the best day to be an Arsenal fan in years. But I unfortunately You'd probably say about the opposite, because I know it's been an extremely difficult week for you and your cherries.
It has. We just got the news today that Eddie Howe and the club have parted ways, which is, for me, growing up as a fan, obviously there was years before Eddie Howe, but our success under him has been amazing. Coming from bankruptcy and then minus 17 points all the way to the Premier League. And now, we got relegated. We were hoping Eddie would stick around. Unfortunately, it's going to be a clean slate on the managerial side of things, which is just going to be a very strange feeling, no doubt about it.
Yeah, he's one of the top English managers in the Premier League, and I think he would have been the right man to bring Bournemouth back, and hopefully he'll land on the feet, and so will the Cherries.
Hopefully, yeah. If we can stick, listen, the championship was never even within reach for us most of our history. We had a couple of short spells, so I'd be quite happy with us to hang around in the championship for a little bit. As long as we bring someone young and hungry, and just like Eddie was.
Yeah, I wanted to ask this earlier, but I wanted to ask Ross, how did the team come up with the colors, and if you could tell us what the color scheme is for the uniforms, and how did they come up with that?
So it's sort of I would say it's a bright green. It's not really luminous green. It sort of varies in colors in the logo. If you look at the logo, it's sort of a graded green as well as the blue. South Carolina, as I said, is a coastal state, but it's also known for the mountains in the far west of the state. So you have the blue of the ocean, and you also have the green of the mountains. They don't get too much snow up there in the Appalachians. A little bit if the weather's bad enough on either side of the mountains. But yeah, the green for the mountains and the blue for the water.
And I noticed there, when you look at the map, I guess your closest rivals would be Chattanooga and South Georgia. In relative terms, how far is that from like a drive to go to Chattanooga or to South Georgia from Greenville?
Yeah, but I think all of them within a couple of hours. It's funny you should mention the rivalry thing, because when all the teams sort of first came out, South Georgia would be our closest rival, and that was sort of everybody was pimping that we actually played in the first ever League One match last season with Tormenta coming out on top 1-0 with a late goal by Alex Morel, who actually plays for us now, which was ironic. And he scored the first goal in the USL 2020 season as well. So everybody was kind of thinking they were going to focus on that as being the local rivalry, especially when the initial schedule for this sort of retool season came out, was we were going to play, every team was going to play one rival 4 times, sort of hopefully their closest geographic rival. And then when the schedule came out, we were paired with Richmond, which is a little further away, maybe 3 hours up the road, I think. And so everybody's a little frustrated that they weren't going with Tormenta or Chattanooga. But Tormenta's, had a great start to last season. We got off to a bit of a slow start. We were very close down the stretch. And I think Wednesday's game should be, they've got some very talented players on that team as well. So I think Tormenta is the one that everybody wants to see. But Richmond, we played a ton of times last season as well. Chattanooga, we haven't played as much. They're a little bit different team. They're an older team, slightly bigger budget, now got their own stadium. So it's just going to take time for rivalries to come about, Tony. I don't think you can really force rivalries to happen, as I think some people thought the league were doing last year, and then with the scheduling this year against Richmond. But there's enough teams locally that it's great that the teams, the fans, can travel and go watch games without having to get on a plane.
I think you make a good point there that rivalries need to grow organically, and they're not always based on geography. I think the most famous rivalry in League One right now is actually Richmond and Madison, and they're not even really close to each other.
Yeah, the fan groups have done sort of a good job in getting together and making things like the Henny Cup, and it'll grow organically as the leagues go on. Obviously, if we happen to play perhaps North Texas, who had to retool again, losing a lot of players to FC Dallas, and we thought they were going to look a bit different this year. They do look different, but they're playing exactly the same way. Came out with a win in their first game. So there's a good potential that the championship game could be a rematch again, which would obviously perhaps spark that rivalry.
Is there any truth to the rumor that the Rochester Rhinos are going to be joining League One?
So I haven't heard much about that recently. The rumor was that them and Penn FC, who also, they dropped out of the championship, I think 2 seasons ago, were originally going to come back into League One this season. There was all sorts of rumors flying after last year, and that was the initial plan was for that. But I know they've had all sorts of stadium issues up in Rochester, and neither team quite ready to join just yet. And obviously, there was also talk about getting some more of the MLS 2 sides to come down from the championship to join League One. That was also rumored about happening this year, and for different reasons hasn't happened. But they're talking. There's some serious talk about that happening next year. So I think you will see expanded league size next year. But yeah, it'd be great to see Rochester back in there, as one of the, longest existing franchises in the USA. So we've got 12 teams at the moment. I would expect perhaps to see us in the high teens next year. There's also some other rumors of a Riverside, California side coming in. Big potential for growth.
Well, Ross, we're going to do another later in the book where you're going to come back on and talk maybe about how the matches are going and maybe go a little bit more in depth in the roster and whatnot.
Sure.
Today we're just kind of wanting to give people a taste of the history of the Greenville Triumph and I think a little bit of an introduction to the team. And we've done that real well today. But one thing I did want to kind of add on to the end of this episode was one thing I wanted to talk with you about. We haven't really ever gotten into this on the podcast before, is your broadcast work with Greenville Triumph. And, I just kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about, how does that work? So now you're part of the ESPN Plus team, or how does that exactly work?
So it's an interesting dynamic that we do get a lot of questions about. So we do all our broadcasts remotely from a studio here in South Florida, about a half hour from my house. So the company is called Vista World Link, and so what they do is not every team has a deal with us. Some teams still bring the traditional production truck in and have live commentators at the stadium. But I'm planning on saying it's probably about half the league uses us. It's a lot cheaper to use us. So we'll go to a stadium and we'll set up the internet system there. Obviously, they have to have an existing internet system. We set it up with the cameras being able to feed to be able to feed back to the studio with the broadcast. So yeah, my broadcast partner Chris Makoviak and I sit in a little studio, and we get the live feed from the stadium, including the net sound. So we get to hear the crowd and the coaches and obviously the referee whistles, etc. But you're obviously relying pretty heavily on the cameraman to do a good job. Which sometimes in some of the newer markets, it takes a little while for the guys to get used to it if they haven't done soccer. Some of those stadiums aren't, as built as well as others are, so the camera angles can be a little low. I know the game last night, it was obviously supposed to be in Madison, but they can't play soccer there at the moment due to the coronavirus. They play just outside Milwaukee, and that stadium had a bit of a low camera angle, so it's a little different. It definitely makes it difficult to be a commentator because sometimes you're relying a lot on the cameraman and the quality of the feed. Sometimes the numbers on the jersey, players not looking like each other sometimes to be able to catch it. Chris does a great job of it, though. He's a great play-by-play guy.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, especially what you're saying with the setups of some of these stadiums. For instance, I'm watching, as we're talking here, I'm kind of watching a replay of the Greenville game from last night. I've got it on my TV on mute over here, and I saw that one of your guys just kicked a field goal.
Well, yeah, that stadium has the soccer. It also has the football post still there above. We had one last night with Dallas James just let it go over his head and it hit the football, the American football, the gridiron crossbar, which you obviously only see that at sort of the high school and perhaps League Two levels here. So it was interesting. And then the lines I don't know if you can see the lines on the field last night, Phil. They had football and lacrosse. Boys and girls lacrosse had two different sets of lines. So it was a little messy on the eye last night.
They've got the track around it and everything. I mean, this is those things where you can go to Walmart and buy the 8-in-1 game table, and it's got
yes.
pool and air hockey. This is like the 8-in-1 game table at pitches here in Madison.
That was in a place called Wauwatosa, just outside Milwaukee. It's actually a good 70 miles from Madison, so it's good to see the fans travel out there. And they actually have a train that goes by right behind the one goal. On the left-hand side as the camera looks at. You see the train go by every now and again.
I'm seeing the train go by as you talk here at the 40-minute mark here. I saw the train go by as you said that.
Yeah, there's some very interesting facilities in League One. There's no doubt about it. John Hart's raving last week about the new Inter Miami Stadium. Obviously, even without fans, he was saying what an amazing facility that they put together there, which is obviously only going to be temporary, allegedly, for Inter Miami, but should be the permanent home of Fort Lauderdale in League One. So that'll be a beautiful place for everybody to come visit, especially as a fan once everything gets back to normal, whenever that happens.
The technology that they have these days has really made it a little bit easier for you guys to be able to set up and broadcast a game from anywhere, and you just kind of sounds like you have this one location where you guys can all show up to, and as long as you get the cameraman in place, you can run the broadcast wherever the game's at.
Yeah, obviously technology. I know in our first game of the season last Saturday, we lost the feed late, 3 times, I think, in the last maybe 15 minutes, but only for about 10 or 20 seconds. And it came right back. You are at the mercy of technology. There's no doubt about it. But, for these League One sides where the budget is so low, being able to save money wherever you can is a great opportunity. A lot of teams have taken advantage. As I mentioned earlier, Major League Rugby, that's just getting, we just had our second season. Obviously, it finished early because of the pandemic, but going into the third season next year, we'll have 3 new teams that we hopefully will be able to. We have the contract with Rugby Atlanta right now, which was a brand new franchise this year. So I got to do their games as a color commentator along with Chris. And so hopefully we'll be expanding into Major League Rugby a little more. That league sort of gets going. And again, this will be our 3rd season coming up. I think we start in February or so. Hopefully by then things will get a little bit back to normal. But yeah, no, it's a very interesting setup, especially when you're in there on a busy day and the studios are just buzzing and the production rooms are buzzing. It's a really fun place to be.
I can imagine. It sounds like a lot of fun, and it cuts down on the amount of time you got to spend in an airplane, too.
Oh, listen, I mean, yeah, I would like to do a live game here and there. I do my college games, obviously, live from the bleachers, but, I'm not in a press box there. I'm just under a tent and the wind's blowing. You got to tape every piece of paper down. I don't have to worry about that when I'm doing a USL League One game, but there's obviously advantages of being live at the game too, that you can look at wherever you want to look on the field. You can see different tactics and setups, and which you can't always tell on the TV. So I do try to limit myself somewhat just to the tactical stuff because I can't always see what's going on. Sometimes you can, you're just on the press and the general setup. But yeah, it's a lot different than doing it in real from a live standpoint. There's no doubt about it.
Well, it's not always glamorous. Sometimes doing the live broadcast as people can attribute to a game on a Tuesday night in January at the WAM Stadium when the rain is coming down, the wind is blowing, and Ben Wild is huddled up in a park and calling play-by-play. So it's not always glamorous as what people make out, but I think people like yourself and Ben put color to the sport on the pitch and makes it enjoyable for everybody.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, Greenville's actually the only team in League One that pays for a 2-man booth. So I'm the only color guy in League One history, unless you count the championship game last year, which I didn't get to do the championship game because we bring in sort of our A team to do the championship game, which is fine. Because I'm sort of still a semi-pro. I've only been doing it it's only my 4th year, and I was very much part-time before that, doing the odd game here and there, including a couple of Phoenix Rising games. Famously, the last game they lost before they went on the big winning run last season, Phil, against Orange County.
It was all your fault, Ross.
So I was banned from doing games after that, but apparently, allegedly. But no,
well, Ross, you're always on the A list and the A team here with across the pitch. And Tony, did you have anything else before we wrapped up today?
No, that's good. I'm certainly know more about Greenville Triumph now, and I'll certainly keep an eye out for the results. I can't get much coverage up here in Canada, but I'll certainly follow them online.
Don't they put this on YouTube in Canada?
They do. All the games are on internationally on YouTube. So yeah, you can catch our game Wednesday night, 7 p.m. against South Georgia Tormenta.
I've got no excuse now.
There you go.
Listen, we're a fun team to root for. I was thinking about this before the call. Like, you've got John Harkes as the coach, which you can't go wrong with, being one of the most famous soccer players in U.S. history. We're a good team. We don't play the most exciting brand of football at times. At least this year we've started to push a little more forward and play with a higher line, which cost us a goal actually last weekend against Richmond. But we would like to knock the ball about, and we're a fun team to root for. There's no doubt about it.
I've got the Together We Triumph scarf here on my wall, and I will be rooting for Greenville and tuning in to hear your commentary, Ross, and look forward to some more episodes as we have Greenville Triumph as Across the Pitch Team of the Month for August. And as always, thank you to both of you guys for your time today. Look forward to chatting soon.
Of course, boys.
Guys.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers.